I've hit the go live. So.
Read up there, 5 ways to stay connected.
All right, it says we're live, Pat.
Channel 7 picked up, so. Now I gotta go get back into this part.
We need just one big switch on the wall. We can go like that.
Say, I need an easy button.
Good to go, Pat.
Should be coming up. Actually, you should be live now. It's just waiting for Channel 7 to catch up.
Yeah, I can see it.
Good evening and welcome to tonight's city council meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order. First thing I'm gonna ask for is agenda changes.
None to present from staff.
Okay, we'll move on to public forum. Is there anybody this evening that wishes to address the council? Seeing nobody present, we're gonna close public forum and move on and ask for the approval of the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, if there's no discussion, I'd make a motion to approve the consent agenda for March 8th, 2021 as presented.
Second.
Heard the motion and the second to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those same sign, the consent agenda carries forward as passed. We have no unfinished business on our agenda this evening, so we're gonna move right into new business. Item number 1 is consideration of Dragon Grant applications, and Ethan will update us on who's applying for that.
Thank you. As council will recall, we made a few adjustments towards the end of 2020 into that Dragon Grant program. One of them being, instead of just going completely as a turn-in and to consider the applications as they're turned in, we put a 3 or 2 month window for initial applications to be turned in so the council could review multiple at one time. We had 2 new applications or applications on the new form that were turned in, as well as one that was just held over from a previous application year. Those were for Bryant Real Estate for work at Phil Schmidt's former building, Halstead Tire, and then Golden Harvest Restaurant. The applications were in there for your review, as well as the supplemental documentation that was provided by the applicants. Golden Harvest and Halstead Tire have both received previous Dragon Grants and successfully completed the program and complied with the rules. And they have both been, it's been long enough that they can be reconsidered. And then Bryant Real Estate, this would be their first time applying for one, but the building they're applying for does have the active permit, and they're just applying towards all the renovation and reskinning work that they're doing there. So that is, as they all met application guidelines. We did recommend approval from a staff perspective for all of these, but you all are the deciding body on that, so have that in front of you now to consider whether to award these applications or not.
Well, I'd like to say we're all aware of these different entities in town here, and they all do very good business, and they serve our community well. And I'm in favor of these. You need an individual motion for each one, right?
Yeah, because they're specific monies going towards each
If anybody's got any other questions or discussion, I would make a motion to approve the $10,000 Dragon Grant to Bryant Real Estate.
Second.
Got the motion and the second to approve the Dragon Grant for Bryant Real Estate. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those same sign, that carries.
I would also like to make a motion in the amount of $8,995 Dragon Grant to Halstead Tire LLC.
Second.
Have the motion and the second for the Halstead Tire Dragon Grant. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those same sign, that motion carries. And our third one.
And I'd also like to make a motion to approve the $10,000 Dragon Grant to Golden Harvest.
Second.
Have the motion and the second to approve the Dragon Grant for Golden Harvest. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those same sign. And they all 3 carry, and Appreciate it, council. I think that's been a great program in town, and I hope we can continue to do it. Next item on the agenda is discussion of natural gas situation. We do have a resolution and an ordinance to look at tonight, and I'm gonna let Ethan explain those.
Thank you. I'm gonna rely a little bit on City Attorney Jantz here as well, because this is kind of a moving part, as you'll notice in the application resolution and ordinance. There's some fill in the blanks, and we'll need some guidance from you all as far as what we need to apply for and how long of a term you want to put that on, et cetera. I guess, we talked about this a lot during the work session. The last communication we have, and it's still not a firm or hard numbers, we haven't received the actual bill, but we did get notification from KMGA that they estimate our gas bill for February to be approximately, or it'll be $2,053,451. And then there's also pipeline penalty fees. And again, that's estimated because KMGA is still working with the pipeline companies on those fees because they were under forced flow orders at the time. And that just basically because we were pulling in more gas than the pipeline thought we should have during that time frame. But that was approximately $150,000 in those fees, which would put us just shy of $2.2 million in total cost for February. Part of this program, as previously discussed, says that we need to use a good portion of reserves, or we should be committing what we can afford and what's prudent based on other plans we have. Looking at our reserve level, we think we could approximately take about 200,000 out of gas reserve, still leaving enough for future gas projects like the new development to run main, and still have enough to respond to any main failures or major infrastructure issues the city might incur. That would be about 66% of our built-up reserve, and would take us down to needing probably, assuming the pipeline fees stay, $2 million. I don't know how much citizen input you all have received, but I've received, calls from people that say, hey, please don't finance it. I want to pay my bill. And I understand that logic. The hard issue for us is we have to think of the system as a whole. We know not everyone's going to be able to pay. We're not going to be able to delay payment to the gas suppliers, for 10 years. They're going to want those funds. So we're basically forced that we need an ability to generate and have $2 million on hand to pay that bill when it comes due. Again, behind the scenes, everyone's still working like on the pipeline fees. They're still working with federal investigators, although, as it's been pointed out in several meetings, any sort of relief, the investigation of this is going to be something that we're talking about in the months or even years before there's resolution, which doesn't help us with the immediate issue. So I see no other way unless we want to look at something like no fund warrants or trying to go out to the private market for some sort of utility revenue bond. This is, from a fiduciary standpoint, at 0.25% and the 2% guarantee below the statutory rate. This is probably the best and cheapest way that we can get the funds we need to pay that bill. The state's, again, made a very generous program as far as there are no penalties if we're able to pay more than our payment or pay it off early. There's no prepayment penalties. But the ordinance we have to pass has to be for a not to exceed amount. And so my advice is we probably need to ask for 2 million as our not to exceed amount, and then ask for the full 10-year repayment. Again, the hope would be that everyone will be able to pay these bills when we push them out, and we've confirmed with our software company that we are able to differentiate and basically have a rolling balance amount specific to this, because our software company obviously services other cities that are also in this crisis, so they've been working, trying to get that. The nice part is this, it would be exempt and almost kind of be a standalone function on everyone's bills. So you would have kind of your February amount, and from what we understand, people would even be able to give us differing terms for what worked for them. So if we have customers that only need 6 months to pay it back, great. If we have customers that would need the full 10 years, we can look at setting that up going forward. So we do think there's an ability with our utility software to encompass this, make sure that, it's exempt from like late fees or something. If 4 months from now, somebody would be late on that month's bill, it's not gonna come flag them on this installment plan they have for February's consumption. Again, we still don't know what that final per unit cost is going to be until we get that final bill and figure that. But looking at KMGA's updated estimates, I mean, it's gonna be a substantial increase. I shared kind of some of the preliminary numbers with you all for a household based on consumption of what a general bill would be and what under those 1 month rates would be. By March, rates are gonna fall back to normal, but it just depends of, everybody's ability to pay is different. The big point to you all of if we sign up for this loan and we say we're gonna make monthly payments at $2 million over 10 years, and the interest rate, essentially that's $17,000 a month that we would need to have in terms of payment to the state. Again, now we can set that up at quarterly or semi-annually or even yearly. So $200,000 a year is gonna be what we basically need to be able to send back to the state. And part of the language, if you all read through that ordinance, is you're guaranteeing that you will set rates for all customers in order to get that. So, I don't know that we're completely out of the woods with having to look at some sort of rate increase, because we have to guarantee that we always have the ability to send those funds going forward. And we're obligating ourselves, if we take this money from the state, that we will do that regardless of how painful or how much those rate increases might have to be. Luckily, I mean, I think we should be in an ability to hopefully not be like some cities I know are looking at 60% increases in their rates, and hopefully that will not be the case for us from what we're projecting. But it's hard to really give you a final number without seeing what February's actual bill is and how that breaks down. So at this point, I'll gladly try and answer questions or.
Ethan, we have to have this resolution and this particular ordinance we're looking at, we have to have that in place before we make application for this loan. And we have to make application for this loan by March 15th. So we are under the gun here. We've all been looking at it. It's probably the only avenue that we have that's gonna offer us some immediate relief. So I don't think we have a choice. Man, go ahead, Ed.
It seems to me like this is a two-pronged issue. Number one is the city has to pay $2 million or whatever the amount is. The secondary issue is how are we going to transfer that to the individual persons that have utilities? And that doesn't have to be decided right now. And maybe we haven't decided, maybe there is a decision.
Well,
But we don't know the rates yet. And I think number one is we need to agree and pass this $2 million application.
Well, I don't think,
And then follow on with what happens next.
I'd like to say that collectively, we've been discussing these matters, how we're gonna pay for this. I work with an individual who's on the Heston Council, and looking at all the options that, as Ethan mentioned, from a fiduciary standpoint, this is, I believe, the safest and most sound long-term decision that we can make regarding this issue.
From my own personal feeling, I think we have a 10-year opportunity here, and I really like that we can pay this off anytime we can. If everybody pays their bill, we could be out from underneath this thing literally in a few months.
Absolutely.
But we don't know that everyone will.
Or
But
can.
we still, I still feel that we'll be out from under this real quick, and as far as any additional incurred cost to the citizens will be what we actually incur. It's not, nothing added to that. I would look at it just based on a 10-year, and we get the thing paid off.
Council, do you have anything to add to this?
Not a great deal more than what Ethan's already mentioned. We've talked about this. There's going to be some administrative challenges with pieces of this as it relates to a transient society, in fact, that people move in and out, and they may or may not have a bill, that's from this portion. The one thing, as long as you grasp the fact that this money comes to us with the absolute requirement that the full faith and credit of the citizens of this city are going to guarantee payment. That's what you're binding us to. And that in and of itself, it's not the worst thing in the world, because you're right, we do have the ability to prepay it, but it's a healthy sum, and we're going to have to figure out how to budget for that, and figure out something in the way of bad debt loss, if you will, from some people. Not because people necessarily don't want to pay their bills, but because they're, especially in a year of a pandemic, we've got some people that are really, truly hand them out. We hope that that will recover, and we'll have far less problems with that than we could. But you have to always plan for the worst case scenario when you're coming in and doing this. Having said all that, this is the only source of funds like this that you're going to have that are fairly readily available. The other ways for us to go about coming up with the kind of necessary monies are difficult at best, take a lot longer than we have. We're caught in between. We still don't have a final number, but yet they want this submitted by the 15th, and our legislature, I don't think I ever remember a time where they moved on something in a week or a few days. So, and it shows a little bit, and they acknowledge that. Eric Sartorius specifically came in, the league was pretty heavily involved, and he said, this form leaves something to be desired. There's no doubt about it. But as Ethan and I were talking about it, and I've looked at it for other communities as well, we're just going to do the very best we can in terms of filling that out and getting it in. I agree, if we're going to do it, we need to pass it tonight. We need to get it in place so that we submit before the 15th. Further out beyond that we go, the greater the risk that we won't necessarily be funded. So, because it sounds like a lot of money, but when you consider how many communities and how badly all of them were hit, it's going to go away.
In your experience with other cities that you represent, are they considering?
No question.
No question.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Because there just aren't any options.
Yeah.
If everybody had that kind of resources, we'd be doing a whole lot of other things in communities as well. This is just a tremendous drain over a short period of time, kind of staggering in terms of what it does to everyone. No one could plan for this. No one did.
So if we do this on a 10-year, do we want to do the payments on monthly, quarterly, or semi-annual? That's your call.
I would suggest monthly, again, from a fiduciary standpoint, because this is a simple interest loan. The more payments we make and the faster we're whittling away the principal, which lowers the overall interest cost that the city would incur. I do think we have enough gas activity in enough areas that, depending on how this is collected back to the city, we have enough wiggle room that we could make those payments, through other delays of transfers or expenditure cuts in the gas fund to try and make this up.
So those are the decisions we need to make. We've made them. So are we ready to make a motion?
Yeah, I'm ready.
I'd make a motion to approve resolution number 0308-2105.
Second.
You've heard the motion and the second to approve resolution number 0308-21-05. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. That resolution carries unanimously. Now I'll ask for the motion on the ordinance. I would make a motion to approve ordinance number 1308.
Second.
Heard the motion and the second to approve ordinance number 1308. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries unanimously. It's a very difficult situation for every one of us to be in, and I do think that this is probably our best avenue and best choice, and trust me, there's been a lot of people look at this. So hopefully this gets us that immediate relief and we can get this off our back as soon as possible. We're gonna move on to, item number 3 under new business, and that's consideration of requests for consent annexations, and we'll let, Ethan bring that forward.
Thank you. Gotta remember how we put these. We did receive the signed consent request from Larry Williams for that property that is south of 10th and between basically Williams Park and 801. So with that being a parcel of land that is adjoining existing city limits, we have, the declared legal description there. We can bring that in through ordinance, which would be ordinance 1309. And then the other consent annexation was discovered that we had an error on the request for consent annexation that we passed basically to ourselves for Wedgwood. We had left or erroneously stated that Wedgwood was somehow touching city limits. We all know it does not. So we have updated that request. And then just as belt and suspenders, and per the county's legal counsel's request, we're passing another resolution.
Really, well, it was passed through their legal counsel. One of the commissioners wanted us to go ahead and do it all so that there could be no question about the dates on it. And I apologize for that. I'm sure that was my issue when we drafted that. All we left off was NON on the non-adjoining, and I'm pretty sure I did put that in, but I'm not sure what Steph finished up with, but that's not her fault either. We were just trying to get them redone, so.
So basically, between this ordinance, would be bringing in immediately the Williams property, and then the resolution will be resubmitted to Harvey County, and then assuming that the county would find in our favor, we will bring a subsequent ordinance, if it's approved, to eventually bring Wedgwood Golf Course into city limits as well.
I have one question, Ethan. Do we have any underlying motivations on annexing the golf course?
No.
Thank you. And I assure everyone out there, there are no underlying reasons.
This is,
In addition, to make anyone feel a little bit better about that, there are some impediments to our being able to do that. I know what the question is, and I know that that was raised the last time, but in that instance, it was legitimate because there were at least some discussions about surrounding properties being developed. There were no such discussions in this case. We can put that on the record. And also, some cities have made that attempt very much like they used to do those ribbon annexations. We'll get the roadway, and then we'll take another piece of land a mile away. That has been dealt with in a less than favorable approach by the legislature, and both between the legislature and the cases the courts have reviewed based upon the existence of the current state of the statutory scheme. We really don't have a good, ready, easy way to do that, even if we were attempting to or wanted to, and no one has raised that issue at all. And I assured their legal counsel of that the other day, so hopefully everyone's heard that enough.
and just to clarify, because it might have been something that I misspoke on, we do receive sales tax collection from the golf course already because that's under a countywide tax, and that's both handled by existing state statute, and then there's an interlocal agreement for the second county sales tax. The taxes we're talking about are the personal property taxes that are paid out there on certain personal property of individuals. That all currently goes to the county. It's not a huge amount. It's not gonna make the difference to us or the county. Another is logistics, like when we did the clubhouse remodel. We ran afoul of the county because we didn't think at the time we needed a county building permit. I mean, we pulled one for the city, not even thinking about it. So it solves little issues like that, both, from if there's an issue that law enforcement has to deal with, if we're doing renovations to the clubhouse, we can issue our own permit. Cereal malt beverages, we don't have to go to the county to get them, we can get them from ourselves now. So it's not about expansion, that's why we paid for a survey, so we knew where our boundaries were. And that is all we're doing, is putting city-owned property into city limits, so we have more control on that piece of property.
Very well put.
Thank you.
I would also ask one other thing. When we do the motion, that we do that subject to staff review, I want to make sure we talked with Anthony about this. I know you did. I don't think that they're going to ask us to rescind the old one. I think they'll just vote it down. But if for some reason that turned out to be easier, I would add that small bit of language into this one, rescinding the one from the last time based upon a clerical error or omission. But I don't expect that. I just want to be sure we can do this and not have to come back and yet again 2 weeks later and do this again.
And that would be needed on the resolution, not the ordinance,
Right.
so.
What was the old resolution number?
It should have been 2/22/21/04, I believe.
To what?
2/22/21/04.
Well, I would make a motion to accept the request for consent annexation from Larry Williams for property that lies upon or touches the city boundary line.
Second.
Heard the motion and the second for the annexation. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries unanimously.
I'd make a motion to approve ordinance number 1309, annexing land into the city of Halstead.
Second.
Heard the motion and the second on ordinance number 1309. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That carries.
Make a motion to accept the updated request for consent annexation from the city of Halstead for Wedgewood Golf Course, which does not adjoin nor touch city boundary lines.
Second.
Heard that motion in the second. All in favor, you need some more language in that,
Yep,
Brad?
just subject to staff review.
Yeah.
Just adding that small addition
Subject
to
to staff review.
in case we need
He'll
to.
second it.
Okay. Heard that motion in second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Then make a motion to approve resolution 0308-2106 and rescind resolution,
You don't have to. I
Don't
think,
have
again,
to?
just use the subject to staff review again. We'll take care of it.
Yeah.
okay, and for staff to present to Harvey County.
Second.
Heard that motion in second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. That carries. Did that take care of everything we needed clerically there?
I believe so.
Because
Well, that's gonna conclude the new business portion of our agenda. We do have one executive session this evening, and I would entertain that motion as soon as Ethan's done writing it.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that city council recess into executive session for 30 minutes to discuss pending litigation pursuant to consultation with an attorney on matters that would be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship, exception KSA 75-4319B2, to include city manager, city attorney.
Back at 8 o'clock, sorry.
Back at 8 o'clock.
Second.
Heard the motion and the second to move into executive session. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Same sign. That carries. We will move into executive session, and we'll move over to the small council room. Council. We are back. We are back from our executive session. Is there any action to be taken as a result of? Hearing no movement from the council, we'll move on to our agenda. And the next item is reports. I'll start with the governing body, and I'll start with you tonight, Ed.
I have nothing tonight.
George?
No, sir.
Mike?
Just wondering how our girls done tonight.
Anybody here?
They just lost by one?
Oh,
Oh, God love them.
I won in double overtime.
By one?
Wow.
Double overtime.
oh.
Well, what a heck of an achievement for the city of Halstead and USD 440, so good job, girls.
Sounds like they give it their all.
Absolutely.
Denise?
I have nothing for tonight.
Sam? Well, with that, we will turn it over to Ethan for the manager report.
Promise I'll only talk about gas a little bit. City and departmental activity since the last meeting, police reported 42 calls for service, 19 traffic stops, and 5 criminal cases. Fire reports 12 calls for service, primarily for assistance with EMS. Chief Van Scoik also coordinated with the Kansas Learning Center for Health as the city is planning to shift the community storm shelter location from the First Mennonite Church to KLCH due to its more centralized location, ample parking, and overall accessibility. Staff will continue to work with KLCH to finalize that transition in the coming weeks. Fire command staff are also hosting a firefighter 1 class with 4 Halstead students and 2 students from area departments. EMS reported 18 recent calls for service, bringing their yearly total to 106 calls for the department. Around 40% of those calls are in the Sedgwick response area. Director Lowe is working with Blue Valley Public Safety and Harvey County Communications on finalizing the radio and communication needs for the new storm sirens. State Board of Pharmacy inspection was completed with no noted deficiencies, and work continues on the State Board of EMS licensing updates. Inspections of the EMS units has also been completed. Parks and Recreation and Tree Advisory Board had their first meeting and discussed ongoing projects as well as potential names for board members for the vacant 2 seats on that board. That board plans to meet quarterly at a minimum or more often as ongoing projects might dictate. Soccer sign-up forms are due today with practices beginning later next week, or later in the week, I'm sorry. Basketball clinic continues as a replacement for the canceled season, and pickleball has started up again at the middle school, Sundays at 7 p.m., which is public are invited to attend. Director Williams continues to work on baseball and softball field maintenance as practices have started, and mowing of the winter growth in the parks area, in addition to the other ongoing recreational activities. Wedgwood Golf reports that new tee box construction on hole number 2 has begun, and that played rounds and mowing are beginning to pick up. High school golf practice also started at the course, and currently the course is sitting at 63 members. 25% of those are new members for 2021. Public Works assisted with the installation of the new storm sirens on 10th Street and by the pool. Staff also worked on the site restoration following a water main repair a few weeks ago, fought ice buildup at the wastewater treatment plant, replaced the water valve on well number 7, thawed out 2 water services and repaired 1 frozen water service. Grading continued on streets, and meter reading and rereads have been completed as well. Staff also did general maintenance and set 3 stones at the cemetery, performed 6 locates, 2 inspections, and 1 gas leak response. And then work on the maintenance truck that had been stolen has been completed, and it has been returned back to useful service. Administration completed and sent out monthly bills for January consumption of utilities. Staff continue to work on the switch to AMI and the VoIP phone systems. Interviews for open public works and the administrative clerical position were also scheduled. The public works interviews have been completed, and we anticipate reaching out to successful candidates later this week to schedule pre-employment testing. Interviews for the clerical position will be held later this week, and then I anticipate that we'll begin scheduling interviews for the Director of Administrative Services / City Clerk position by the end of this week. Since the last meeting, I have been involved with several meetings with the Kansas Municipal Gas Agency Executive Committee, a meeting of the Harvey County Economic Development Council, and a majority of our time continues to be spent on dealing with the natural gas system and looking at that state low-interest loan program. So that is all I have, unless there's any questions.
The only question I have, Ethan, is you said the First Mennonite Church will no longer be used for tornado shelter?
Yeah, we're moving that to the Learning Center for Health.
Okay, we just need to be very vigilant in getting that message out, because that Mennonite church has been the shelter for so long. We've got to get that message out in every avenue available.
Yep.
to Make sure we get that out, and that's my only concern. Council, anything else? Hearing no movement from the council, I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Got the motion and the second for adjournment. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned. Thank you, council, and thank you, Halstead.